The stars had always been peaceful for the Valori people. For 10,000 years, they traveled through space, studied distant worlds, and made friends with other species. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. They believed that kindness and knowledge were the greatest gifts any civilization could offer. Ambassador Kethralis stood on the bridge of the research vessel Harmony's Grace and watched the universe burn around him. The ship shook as another explosion tore through the lower decks. Warning lights flashed red across every console. The gentle hum of the engines had become a dying whisper. Smoke filled the corridors, and the screams of his crew echoed through the communication system. Kethralis was tall and thin, like all Valori. His skin was pale blue and slightly transparent. He had 4 slender arms and large dark eyes that had never seen violence until today. His people were scientists, artists, dreamers. They were not built for war. The Harkons had found them 3 hours ago. 6 raider ships had appeared from behind a dead moon. They gave no warning. They asked no questions. They simply opened fire. The Harmony's Grace was a research vessel designed to study stars and collect samples from asteroids. It had no shields. It had no weapons. It had no chance. "Ambassador," said Navigator Yelthos, her voice trembling. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Life support failing in the eastern sections. We have lost contact with 60 crew members." Kethralis closed his eyes. 60 lives. Gone. Just like that. "How many survivors?" he asked. "Approximately 120. Most are gathered in the cargo bay and the medical center." Another explosion rocked the ship. Through the cracked viewport, Kethralis could see the Harkon vessels circling like predators around wounded prey. They were taking their time, enjoying the hunt. The Harkons were everything the Valori were not. They were large and brutal, covered in thick gray armor that grew from their own skin. They lived for conquest. They found joy in destruction. For generations, they had raided the outer territories, attacking weaker species and taking whatever they wanted. The Galactic Council had tried to stop them many times. They had sent diplomatic missions. They had offered trade agreements. They had even attempted economic sanctions. Nothing worked. The Harkons did not want peace. They wanted blood. "Ambassador," said Communications Officer Drenva, "the lead Harkon ship is hailing us." Kethralis turned to face the main screen. The image flickered to life, showing the face of a Harkon warlord. His name was Dreg, and his reputation was known across 12 systems. He had destroyed countless ships and killed thousands of innocents. Dreg smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Little Valori," he said, his voice deep and mocking. "Your ship is dying. Your crew is dying. And soon, you will die. But first, I want you to beg. Beg for mercy. And perhaps I will make your end quick." Kethralis felt something strange inside his chest. It was not fear. It was not despair. It was anger. A cold, quiet anger that he had never experienced before. "We will not beg," he said softly. Dreg laughed. "Then you will suffer. My warriors are boarding your ship now. They will take their time with your crew. They will make you watch, and when it is over, I will mount your head on my wall as a trophy." The screen went dark. Kethralis stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They were scared. They were dying. And they were looking to him for hope. He had none to give. "Drenva," he said finally, "send a general distress signal on all frequencies. Contact the Galactic Council. Contact the Mindori Collective. Contact anyone who might hear us." "Yes, Ambassador." Drenva's fingers moved across her console. Signal transmitting on all standard channels. It would not matter, Kethralis knew. The nearest council patrol was 5 days away. The Mindori fleet was dealing with a crisis in their own territory. By the time anyone received their signal, the Harmony's Grace would be nothing but debris and memories. Then Drenva paused. Her eyes went wide. "Ambassador, there is another frequency, the emergency channel for Sector 7. Kethralis felt his blood run cold. Sector 7 was human territory. The humans, the deathworlders, Every species in the galaxy knew about the humans. They came from a world called Earth, a planet so hostile that it should not have produced intelligent life at all. Earth had crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, violent storms, deadly predators, toxic plants, diseases that could kill in hours, and somehow, the humans had not only survived, they had thrived. They had conquered their nightmare world and reached for the stars. The Galactic Council had strict rules about the deathworlders. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. And above all, do not ask them for help. No one knew what the humans might do if given a reason to mobilize their fleets. Ambassador, said Yelthos nervously, Council protocol forbids contact with the humans. If we send a signal to their frequency, we could be held responsible for whatever happens next. Kethralis looked at his navigator. She was young. She had her whole life ahead of her, a life that would end today if he did not act. What does it matter? He asked quietly. We are already dead. If the Harkons kill us, the Council will write reports and hold meetings and express their deepest concerns. Nothing will change. Nothing ever changes. He turned to Drenva. Send the signal, all frequencies, including the human channel. Drenva hesitated for only a moment. Then she pressed the button. The distress signal shot out into the void, traveling at the speed of light across the empty reaches of space. It passed through asteroid fields and around dying stars. It crossed the invisible borders between territories and species, and 12,000 light-years away, in a region of space that other species feared to enter, the signal reached a small monitoring station on the edge of human territory. A young officer named Chris Palmer was drinking coffee when his console lit up. He almost spilled the cup as he read the translation. Holy, he whispered. He grabbed his communicator and connected to Fleet Command. This is Station Echo 7. We have a civilian distress signal from Valori research vessel Harmony's Grace. They are under attack by Harkan raiders in the outer Kepler territories. Multiple hostile ships, heavy casualties. They are requesting immediate assistance from any available forces. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then a calm voice replied, Acknowledged, Echo 7. Forwarding to the 7th Expeditionary Force. The Relentless is in range. On the bridge of the dying Harmony's Grace, Kethralis watched the Harkan boarding pods attached to his ship's hull. He could hear the distant sound of cutting tools burning through metal. He had made his choice. He had contacted the deathworlders. Now all he could do was wait and see which monsters reached him first. The carrier USS Relentless hung in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. It was nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in scars from a dozen battles. Its hull was painted dark gray, and its name was written in white letters along the side. Inside, its belly were fighters, bombers, marines, and enough firepower to crack a small moon in half. Commander Jake Morrison stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars. He was 53 years old, with short gray hair and a face that had seen too much. His eyes were tired, but sharp. His hands were rough from years of work. He had joined the Navy at 18 and never looked back. His communicator beeped. Commander Morrison, this is the bridge. We have received a priority distress signal. Jake picked up the device. On my way. He walked through the corridors of the Relentless, passing crew members who saluted as he went by. The ship held nearly 3,000 souls, and every one of them was his responsibility. He took that weight seriously. The bridge was a large, circular room filled with screens and consoles. Officers sat at their stations, monitoring systems and tracking nearby vessels. At the center of the room was a raised platform, where the commander's chair waited. Lieutenant Katie Dawson met him as he entered. She was young, only 28, with red hair pulled back in a tight bun and green eyes that missed nothing. She was the best tactical officer Jake had ever worked with. What do we have? He asked. Katie brought up the display. A star map appeared, showing a blinking red dot in the outer Kepler territories. Valori research vessel Harmony's Grace, she said. Under attack by Harkan raiders. At least 6 hostile ships confirmed. The Valori are reporting heavy casualties and failing life support. They have approximately 120 survivors. Jake studied the map. The Valori were peaceful people. Gentle, fragile. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. They relied on the goodness of the galaxy to protect them. The galaxy had failed them today. How far? Jake asked. 3 days at maximum burn. Can they hold that long? Katie shook her head slowly. Unlikely, sir. The Harkins have already begun boarding operations. Based on their usual patterns, they will kill the crew within the next 12 to 18 hours. Jake felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. 12 hours. 120 innocent lives. Scientists and artists who had never hurt anyone. Contact the fleet, he said quietly. Katie nodded and opened the communication channel. Throughout the 7th Expeditionary Force, speakers crackled to life. On the destroyers Nightfall and Consequence, crews stopped their card games and listened. On the cruisers Cold Mercy and Silent Thunder, engineers put down their tools. On the frigates Wayward Sun and Last Argument, pilots looked up from their meals. On the marine assault ship Hell's Kitchen, soldiers paused their training exercises. Jake Morrison's voice reached all of them. This is Commander Morrison to all ships. We have received a distress signal from a Valori research vessel in the outer Kepler territories. They are under attack by Harkin raiders. 120 civilians are trapped on board, and the Harkins are killing them as we speak. He paused, letting the words sink in. I know what some of you are thinking. The Valori are not our allies. They have never asked for our help before. Some of them are afraid of us. They call us deathworlders and tell stories about how dangerous we are. Jake looked around his bridge at the men and women who served under him. They were human. They had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every single day. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, fires, predators, diseases. They had survived it all. But here is the truth, Jake continued. Those people out there are dying. They sent a signal into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. Anyone. And we heard them. That means something. That means we have a choice to make. He straightened his shoulders. I am not going to give you a speech about duty or honor. You all know why we do this. You all know what it means to be human. We do not leave people behind. We do not ignore cries for help. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Across 7 ships, crew members looked at each other and nodded. They understood. All ships, battle stations, we jump in 60 minutes. Morrison out. The channel closed, and the fleet came alive. On the Relentless, crews ran to their positions. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Engineers powered up the weapons systems. Medical teams prepared their equipment for casualties. Lieutenant Dawson approached Jake with a tablet. Sir, I have the tactical assessment. The Harkins have 6 raider ships, but our scans suggest they may have more in reserve. They are heavily armed and experienced in combat. Jake took the tablet and studied the data. What about their weaknesses? They rely on intimidation and numbers. They have never faced a serious military response because no one in the outer territories has the firepower to challenge them. They do not expect real resistance. Jake smiled grimly. Then they are in for a surprise. On the destroyer Nightfall, Captain Sam Cooper called his crew together. He was a tall black man with a shaved head and a voice like rolling thunder. His ship was small but fast, designed for precision strikes and rapid attacks. Listen up, he said. We are going hunting. Harkins think they are predators. They are about to learn what it means to face a predator from a death world. Every system checked. Every weapon ready. We do not miss. We do not hesitate. Understood? Yes, Captain, his crew shouted back. On the marine assault ship Hell's Kitchen, Captain Ryan Ellis gathered his soldiers. He was a compact man, with brown skin and eyes that burned with quiet intensity. His Marines were the tip of the spear, trained to board enemy vessels and fight in close quarters. The Harkins have taken hostages, Ryan said. Our job is to get them back alive. We will breach the enemy ship, neutralize all threats, and extract the civilians. No unnecessary kills, but no hesitation either. If they point a weapon at you, they die. If they threaten a civilian, they die. Questions? Sergeant Natalie Webb raised her hand. She was tall and muscular, with dark skin and a scar along her jaw from a mission 3 years ago. Rules of engagement for surrendering enemies? Accept their surrender and secure them. We are not butchers. But if they pretend to surrender and then attack, end them permanently. The Marines nodded. They understood the balance between mercy and survival. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Officers briefed their teams. Soldiers checked their weapons. Engineers ran final diagnostics. Everyone knew what was coming. 58 minutes later, the jump drives activated. 7 ships tore holes in the fabric of space and vanished into the light. They traveled faster than anything natural could move, crossing 12,000 light-years in the blink of an eye. Far away, on the dying Harmony's grace, Ambassador Kethralis had no idea what was coming, but the Harkins were about to learn why the galaxy called humans deathworlders, and it was a lesson they would never forget. The Harkin warriors moved through the corridors of the Harmony's grace like shadows of death. They were tall and broad, covered in natural gray armor that grew from their skin like scales. Each one carried a plasma rifle and a curved blade designed for close combat. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim emergency lighting. They had done this many times before. Board a ship, kill the crew, take the valuable resources, leave nothing but bodies and wreckage behind. Warlord Dreg watched the operation from his command ship, the Crushing Fist. He sat in his throne, surrounded by screens showing different sections of the Valori vessel. His warriors were efficient. They had already killed 30 more crew members in the past hour. Beautiful, Dreg murmured, like hunting animals. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Cross, stood nearby. Warlord, we have located the main group of survivors. Approximately 90 of them are hiding in the cargo bay. The area is sealed, but our warriors are cutting through now. Dreg smiled. Tell them to take their time. I want to hear the screaming when they break through. As you command. Inside the cargo bay, Ambassador Kethralis held a young Valori child in his arms. Her name was Lyra, and she was only 6 years old. Her parents had been in the engine room when the Harkins attacked. They did not survive. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the metal walls. Orange sparks appeared along the sealed door as the Harkins burned their way inside. The survivors pressed together in the center of the room, holding hands, whispering prayers to gods who seemed very far away. How long? Asked Navigator Yelthos, her voice barely a whisper. Kethralis looked at the glowing lines spreading across the door. Minutes. Perhaps less. Then this is the end. Kethralis wanted to argue. He wanted to offer hope, but he had none left to give. The distress signal had been sent hours ago. No one was coming. No one could arrive in time. He closed his eyes and prepared to die. Then the universe changed. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to tear apart. 7 points of light exploded into existence, growing rapidly into massive shapes. Ships. Human ships. They appeared from nowhere, emerging from faster-than-light travel with a violence that made the stars shake. The USS Relentless led the formation, its 2-kilometer hull blocking out the stars like a metal moon. Behind it came the destroyers, the cruisers, the frigates, and the marine assault ship, 7 vessels against 6 Harkin raiders. On the Crushing Fist, Warlord Dreg stared at his sensors in disbelief. What is this? He demanded. Cross was already running calculations. His face had gone pale. Human warships, Warlord. 7 of them. They should not be here. Human territory is 12,000 light-years away. How did they arrive so quickly? Dreg had no answer. He had heard stories about the deathworlders, of course. Everyone had. But he had dismissed them as propaganda. Exaggeration. Fear-mongering by weak species who wanted to believe there was someone out there who could protect them. Now he was staring at the proof that those stories were true. Commander Jake Morrison's voice cut through all frequencies, broadcast to every ship in the area. Harkin vessels, This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy. You have attacked civilians under our protection. You have killed innocent people. You have exactly 30 seconds to surrender your ships and release all hostages. If you refuse, we will destroy you. There will be no further warnings. Choose now. Dreg's claws dug into the arms of his throne. Surrender? To deathworlders? The Harkons had never surrendered to anyone. They were conquerors. They were the strongest species in the outer territories. All ships, attack formation, Dreg roared. Kill them. Kill them all. The Harkan fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the human vessels. They were bright and deadly, capable of melting through standard ship armor in seconds. Against any other enemy, they would have been devastating. The Relentless did not even try to dodge. The plasma bolts struck the carrier's hull and splashed harmlessly against reinforced plating. Human ships were built to survive. Earth's gravity was heavy, so human construction was strong. Earth's weather was violent, so human materials were tough. Earth's history was full of war, so human defenses were thick. Jake Morrison watched the enemy fire dissipate against his ship and shook his head slowly. They chose poorly, he said. All ships, weapons free. The human fleet responded as one. The destroyer, Nightfall, fired first. Its main cannon was a magnetic accelerator that launched metal slugs at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The first shot tore through a Harkan raider from bow to stern, leaving a hole the size of a house. The ship exploded 3 seconds later. The cruiser Cold Mercy targeted the second raider with a barrage of missiles. Each missile carried a shaped charge designed to pierce armor before detonating inside. The Harkan vessel's shields collapsed in moments. Its hull cracked open like an egg. The frigate Wayward Sun and its sister ship Last Argument worked together, crossing their fire on a third raider attempting to flee. The combined assault reduced the enemy ship to expanding debris in less than 10 seconds. On the crushing fist, Dreg watched his fleet die. This is impossible, he whispered. We are Harkons. We are warriors. We cannot lose to... The Relentless fired its main battery. The world turned white. When the light faded, 2 more Harkan raiders were gone. Only the crushing fist remained, its engines damaged, its weapons offline, drifting helplessly in the void. The entire battle had lasted 4 minutes. On the Harmony's grace, the Harkan boarding party had stopped cutting. They could hear their comrades screaming over the communication channels. They could see the flashes of light through the portholes. They knew what was happening. The lead warrior, a massive brute named Thrak, grabbed his communicator. Warlord Dreg, what is happening? We need extraction. We need... The communicator crackled with static. Then a human voice came through. Harkan soldiers aboard the Valori vessel. This is Commander Morrison. Your fleet is destroyed. Your warlord is our prisoner. You have 2 options. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will die. You have 60 seconds to decide. Thrak looked at his warriors. There were 12 of them, all armed, all experienced. They had killed many enemies in close combat. They were not afraid, but then they heard the sound. Metal groaning. Locks disengaging. A heavy thump against the outer hull. The humans were boarding. Thrak raised his weapon and pointed it at the corridor leading to the airlock. His warriors formed a defensive line around him. They would fight. They would die with honor. The airlock door exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in black armor. They moved fast, faster than any species Thrak had ever seen. Their weapons were already firing before the Harkons could react. 3 warriors fell in the first second. 2 more in the second. Thrak fired blindly into the smoke, but his shots hit nothing. Then something grabbed his arm. He looked down and saw a human hand wrapped around his wrist. The grip was incredibly strong. Stronger than it should have been from such a small creature. He tried to pull away, but the human did not let go. A face appeared through the smoke. It belonged to a young human male with brown eyes and a calm expression. Drop the weapon, said Private Ben Tucker. Last chance. Thrak swung his other arm, the one with the blade, toward the human's head. Tucker ducked, twisted, and broke Thrak's arm at the elbow. The blade clattered to the floor. Before Thrak could scream, Tucker struck him in the throat, dropping him to his knees. "They always do it the hard way," Tucker muttered, securing the gasping Harkan with restraints. Around him, the other Marines finished the job. In 30 seconds, all 12 Harkan warriors were either dead or captured. Sergeant Natalie Webb approached the cargo bay door. The cutting lines had almost completed a full circle. She knocked on the metal. "Valori survivors, this is Sergeant Webb of the United Earth Marines. The Harkans have been neutralized. You are safe now. We are going to open this door. Please do not be afraid." Inside the cargo bay, Kethralis stood frozen in shock. His arms still held little Lyra, who was crying quietly against his chest. Safe? They were safe? The door groaned and fell inward with a crash. Standing in the opening were 8 humans in dark armor, their weapons lowered, their faces visible through open helmets. Sergeant Webb stepped forward. She saw the ambassador holding the child, saw the fear in his eyes, and understood what he must be feeling. She smiled gently and extended her hand. "Ambassador, I am here to take you home." For the first time in hours, Kethralis allowed himself to breathe. The deathworlders had come, and they had saved them all. The Harmony's grace was dying. Its engines were silent. Its corridors were filled with smoke and debris. Emergency lights flickered red across every deck, but for the first time in hours, there was hope. Ambassador Kethralis followed Sergeant Natalie Webb through the ruined halls of his ship. Behind him came the survivors, 93 Valori, who had hidden in the cargo bay while death stalked the corridors around them. They walked in silence, stepping over broken metal and shattered glass, trying not to look at the bodies of their fallen crew members. Little Lyra clung to Kethralis's leg, refusing to let go. Her large eyes watched the human Marines with a mixture of fear and wonder. These were the deathworlders, the monsters from the nightmare planet, yet they had saved her life. "Ambassador," said Webb, her voice calm and professional, "we have transport shuttles docking at the forward airlock. We will evacuate all survivors to the Relentless, where our medical teams are waiting. Do you have any critically injured who need immediate attention?" Kethralis nodded slowly. His mind was still struggling to process what had happened. "There are several wounded in the medical center. Dr. Venra has been treating them, but our supplies are nearly exhausted." Webb touched her helmet communicator. "Tucker, take your team to the medical center. Priority evacuation for all wounded. Get them to the shuttles first." "Copy that, Sergeant," came the reply. Private Ben Tucker led 4 Marines down a side corridor, moving with the easy confidence of predators who knew there was nothing left to fear. Kethralis watched them go and felt something strange. Not fear, not anger. Something closer to awe. The humans were small compared to many species. They were soft and fragile, lacking the natural armor of the Harkans or the thick hides of the Mindori. Yet they moved through this disaster like it was nothing. The smoke that made Valori eyes water did not seem to bother them. The cold that crept through the failing life support systems did not make them shiver. The death around them did not slow their steps. "Sergeant Webb," Kethralis said quietly, "may I ask you a question?" "May I ask you a question?" Webb glanced back at him. Her face was calm, her eyes alert. "Of course, Ambassador. Why did you come?" "We are not allies. We have never spoken. Your territory is thousands of light years away. Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Webb was silent for a moment. They turned a corner, stepping over a fallen beam that had crushed a console. "Because you needed help," she said finally, "and we heard you. That is all? That is your only reason?" "That is enough." Kethralis did not know how to respond. In his experience, no species did anything without expecting something in return. Trade, political advantage, resources. The galaxy ran on transactions and bargains. Kindness without cost was a concept his people valued but rarely saw in practice. In the medical center, Private Tucker found Dr. Venra standing over a row of injured Valori. The old doctor looked up as the Marines entered, and his forearms trembled with exhaustion. "Please," Venra said. They need help. I have done everything I can. But our equipment is failing. Tucker knelt beside the nearest patient, a young Valori with burns across half his body. His training kicked in automatically. Check breathing. Check pulse. Assess the severity of injuries. Prioritize for transport. This one first, Tucker said, signaling to another Marine. Then the female with the head wound. The others are stable enough to wait. Venra watched the humans work with growing amazement. They were efficient. Precise. Every movement had purpose. Within minutes, the first patients were being loaded onto stretchers and carried toward the shuttles. You are not what I expected, Venra admitted. The stories say your kind are violent, aggressive, dangerous. Tucker looked up from his work. He was young, perhaps 25 in human years, with brown skin and short black hair. His eyes were tired but kind. We are dangerous, he said simply. But that does not mean we are cruel. There is a difference. Elsewhere on the ship, Captain Ryan Ellis led his squad through the engine room. They had received reports that Harken warriors might still be hiding in the lower decks. He was not taking chances. The engine room was massive and dark. The main reactor had been shut down to prevent a meltdown, leaving only emergency power. Shadows stretched across the walls. The only sound was the distant hiss of escaping gases. Ellis moved forward, his rifle raised, his senses sharp. Behind him came 6 Marines, spreading out in a standard search pattern. They had trained for operations like this 1,000 times. Close quarters, low visibility, unknown enemy positions, contact, whispered Corporal Diana Ross, pointing toward a maintenance alcove. Ellis looked where she was pointing and saw a shape moving in the darkness. Harkan, big one, armed with a blade. Come out slowly, Ellis called. Drop your weapon, and you will not be harmed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Harkan charged. He was fast for his size, covering the distance between them in seconds. His blade came down in a vicious arc, aimed at Ellis's head. Ellis sidestepped. Humans had evolved on a planet where predators attacked from every direction. Their reflexes were fast. Their situational awareness was sharp. They had survived by being quicker than things that wanted to eat them. The blade missed by centimeters. Ellis grabbed the Harkan's arm, twisted, and used the alien's own momentum to slam him into the wall. The blade clattered away. Before the Harkan could recover, Ellis had him pinned, one knee on his back, restraints in hand. I gave you a chance, Ellis said calmly, securing the warrior's wrists. Remember that. Ellis's comment/citing Bill Universai. Along, the Harkan snarled something in his own language. It sounded like a curse. Diana Ross appeared beside Ellis, covering the prisoner with her rifle. Captain, we have confirmed all remaining Harkans are accounted for. 7 dead. 8 captured throughout the ship. Good. Get this one to the holding area with the others. As the Marines escorted the struggling Harkan away, Ellis paused and looked around the ruined engine room. This place had been beautiful once. He knew. The Valori built elegant ships designed for exploration and discovery. Now it was a graveyard. He thought about the Harkans and their casual cruelty. They had attacked this ship for no reason other than because they could. They had killed innocent people for the pleasure of it. They had laughed while doing it. Some species in the galaxy believed humans were monsters. They feared the deathworlders and warned their children about them. But Ellis knew the truth. Humans were not the monsters. Humans were what monsters feared. On the bridge of the Relentless, Commander Jake Morrison watched the evacuation progress through a series of live feeds. The Valori survivors were being brought aboard in steady streams. Medical teams met each shuttle, triaging the wounded and directing the healthy to temporary quarters. Lieutenant Katie Dawson approached with a tablet. Sir, we have captured Warlord Dreg. He is being held in the brig. He is demanding to speak with you. Jake raised an eyebrow. Demanding? His exact words were somewhat more colorful. Jake considered the situation. Dreg was a war criminal responsible for thousands of deaths across multiple systems. The proper thing to do was hand him over to the Galactic Council for trial, but Jake also knew the Council's track record. They would debate, they would negotiate, they would eventually release him with a warning, and Dreg would go right back to killing innocent people. "Tell the warlord I will see him when I am ready," Jake said. "Let him wait. It will be good for his character." Katie allowed herself a small smile. "Understood, sir." The last shuttle from the Harmony's Grace docked with the Relentless. Ambassador Kethralis stepped onto the carrier's deck and stopped, overwhelmed by what he saw. The ship was enormous. Corridors stretched in every direction, filled with humans moving with purpose and confidence. Medical teams rushed past with hovering stretchers. Officers gave orders through communicators. Crew members nodded respectfully as they passed their commander. This was a military vessel, Kethralis realized. A warship. Yet there was no brutality here. No cruelty. Only efficiency and discipline. Sergeant Webb appeared beside him. "Ambassador, Commander Morrison would like to speak with you. If you are ready." Kethralis looked down at little Lyra, still clinging to his leg. A nearby Marine officer, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt down to the child's level. "Hey there," said Lieutenant Dawson softly. "Are you hungry? We have food in the cafeteria. I bet we can find something you would like." Lyra looked up at Kethralis, uncertain. He nodded slowly. "Go with her. You are safe now." The child hesitated, then released his leg and took Dawson's offered hand. They walked away together, the little Valori girl and the human officer, toward whatever awaited them. Kethralis watched them go and felt tears forming in his large dark eyes. He had been wrong about the deathworlders. They were not monsters at all. They were something much more terrifying. They were heroes. 3 weeks had passed since the rescue of the Harmony's Grace. The Valori survivors had been returned to their homeworld, where they received a welcome usually reserved for those returning from the dead. The news of what happened spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. The humans had come. The deathworlders had answered a cry for help. And the Harkins, the unstoppable raiders who had terrorized the outer territories for generations, had been destroyed in 4 minutes. Now the Galactic Council had gathered in their great chamber to discuss what this meant. Representatives from 47 species sat in a massive circular hall, each in their own section designed for their specific environmental needs. The Mindori floated in their water tanks. The Selthan perched on heated platforms. The Zethkari huddled in their cold chambers. And in the center of the room, standing at the testimony platform, was Ambassador Kethralis. He had been asked to give an official account of the incident. The council wanted details. They wanted to understand how the humans had responded so quickly, why they had acted without being asked, and what they might expect from the deathworlders in the future. Kethralis looked out at the assembled representatives and gathered his thoughts. "I will tell you what I witnessed," he began slowly. "And then I will tell you what I believe." The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the Valori ambassador had to say. "When the Harkins attacked our ship, I thought we were going to die. We had no weapons. We had no way to defend ourselves. We sent a distress signal on all frequencies, knowing that help was days away. I expected to die waiting for rescue that would never arrive." He paused, remembering the fear. The screaming, the smell of smoke and blood. Then the humans came. 7 ships appeared from faster-than-light travel, crossing 12,000 light-years to reach us. They did not hesitate. They did not negotiate. They gave the Harkins one chance to surrender. When that chance was refused, they destroyed the Harkin fleet in less than 4 minutes. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. 4 minutes. Against the Harkins. It seemed impossible. Their Marines boarded our ship and eliminated the Harkin soldiers who had been killing our crew. They were fast, efficient, skilled. They moved through our corridors like predators hunting prey. But when they found our survivors, they were gentle, kind. They spoke softly to our wounded. They held our children and promised they would be safe. Kethralis felt the old emotions rising again. He pushed them down and continued. "I asked their commander, a man named Jake Morrison, why they came. Why they risked their lives for people they had never met. Do you know what he told me?" The council waited. He said, Because you needed help. That is enough. Ambassador Velthrix of the Mindori Collective raised a tentacle. With respect, Ambassador Kethralis, how can we trust the humans? They are deathworlders. Their planet is hostile. Their evolution was driven by violence and competition. How do we know they will not turn against us? Kethralis considered the question. It was a fair one. The humans came from a world called Earth, a planet that seemed designed to kill its inhabitants. Heavy gravity, extreme temperatures, deadly storms, predators on land, in the sea, and in the sky. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Wars that lasted decades. How could any species survive such a world and remain good? I asked that same question, Kethralis admitted. I wondered if the humans would demand payment for their help. If they would claim our territories. If they would enslave us or exploit us. These are the things we have learned to expect from powerful species. He spread his forearms wide, but the humans wanted nothing. They brought us to their ship. They healed our wounded. They fed our survivors. And when we reached my homeworld, they departed without asking for anything in return. Their commander said only, "Take care of each other. That is what matters." The council chamber buzzed with whispered conversations. This was not what they had expected to hear. I have studied the humans since returning home, Kethralis continued. I have read their history. I have examined their culture. And I have realized something important. The humans are dangerous, more dangerous than any species we have encountered. But they use their danger in a way we do not expect. He walked to the center of the platform, demanding their full attention. On Earth, humans evolved alongside predators that could kill them with a single bite. They developed the ability to run for hours without stopping, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They learned to work together, coordinating hunts with tools and communication. They survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and natural disasters that would have destroyed most species. Kethralis lowered his voice. And throughout all of this, they developed a sense of community, a bond between individuals who faced death together. They call it many things: loyalty, honor, compassion, duty. But it all comes down to one simple idea. Humans protect each other, and they extend that protection to anyone they consider part of their group. Representative Drakvor of the Selthan stood on his heated platform. You are saying the humans adopted your people as their own? Based on a single distress signal? I am saying that when we called for help, the humans decided we were worth saving. That decision was made in seconds. And once they made it, they committed everything they had to our rescue. Kethralis looked around the chamber one final time. We have spent centuries avoiding the deathworlders. We feared what they might do if we provoked them. We imagined them as monsters waiting to destroy us. But we never considered what they might do if we asked for their help. He let that thought settle into the minds of the assembled representatives. The Harkons terrorized the outer territories for generations. They killed thousands of innocents. They destroyed countless ships, and no one could stop them. The council sent diplomats. We sent negotiators. We sent messages of concern. Nothing worked. His voice grew stronger. The humans sent warships, and the problem was solved in 4 minutes. The chamber was completely silent now. My people made what we thought was a terrible mistake when we sent that distress signal. We broke protocol. We contacted the deathworlders. We expected the worst, but instead, we discovered something we never imagined. Kethralis straightened his back and spoke the words he had been waiting 3 weeks to say. The humans are not the monsters we feared. They are the protectors we needed. And perhaps the galaxy's greatest mistake was not accidentally contacting them. Perhaps it was waiting so long to do so. He stepped back from the platform. His testimony was complete. Far away, aboard the USS Relentless, Commander Jake Morrison received a copy of the ambassador's speech. Lieutenant Katie Dawson had flagged it as interesting. Jake read through it twice, then shook his head with a slight smile. The humans are protectors we needed, Katie quoted. That is quite a statement. It is also quite a responsibility, Jake replied. Word gets out that we helped the Valori. And suddenly, everyone in the outer territories is going to expect us to solve their problems. Katie tilted her head. Is that such a bad thing, sir? Jake looked out at the stars through his viewport. Somewhere out there, other ships were sending distress signals into the darkness. Other innocent people were being attacked by raiders and pirates, and worse. Other children were crying for help that might never come. No, he said quietly. His communicator beeped. He recognized the signal as coming from Fleet Command. Morrison here. Commander, we have received a new distress signal. Mindori colony on the frontier rim. Pirates have attacked their settlements. They are requesting assistance. Jake looked at Katie. She was already pulling up the tactical display. How many civilian casualties? Jake asked. Unknown, but rising. Jake did not hesitate. He had been in the Navy for 35 years. He had seen countless battles. He had lost friends and crew members. He had made impossible decisions in the heat of combat. But this decision was not hard at all. Tell the fleet to prepare for departure. We jump in 1 hour. He closed the channel and stood from his chair. The Valori ambassador was right about one thing. The humans were protectors. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day, and they had emerged with a fierce drive to protect those weaker than themselves. It was not always logical. It was not always practical. But it was who they were, and as long as there were cries for help in the darkness, the deathworlders would answer. The stars waited for no one. Neither did the crew of the Relentless. Commander Jake Morrison walked onto his bridge and prepared to go to war again. It was just another day for the humans. Just another chance to prove the galaxy wrong. Just another opportunity to show that the monsters from Earth were not monsters at all. They were humanity, and they would never stop fighting for those who could not fight for themselves.